Good evening and welcome. We will call to order this October 24th, 2022 meeting of the Center Region Council of Governments General Forum to order. At this point, I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point, staff will take a roll call of members so we can confirm everybody can hear and be heard.
Mr. Balachandran?
You won't be here.
Mr. Barlow?
Here.
Ms. Herring?
Here.
Ms. Engman?
Here.
Ms. Kristen Cootie?
She won't be here.
Mr. Lipscomb? Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mr. Bernier?
Here.
Mr. Best?
Here.
Mr. Frank?
Here.
Ms. Stilson?
Here.
Mr. Kakat? Here. Ms. Danini?
Here.
Ms. Stevens?
Here.
Ms. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Thompson? Here. Ms. Williams? Mr. Beck? Ms. Hartle?
Here.
Ms. Hoover? Mr. Piper? Mr. Sabella is unable to join us. Mr. Graham?
Here.
Mr. Hammeister?
Yes.
Hardin?
Here.
Mr. Lord?
Here.
Mr. Wilson's unable to join us. Mr. Abrams?
Here.
Mr. Magruder?
Here.
Ms. Rob's unable to join us. Mr. Trevino? Ms. Whitman?
Here.
Good meeting back to you.
Thank you very much. A reminder, those RSVPs really do help staff a lot. Public comments, we received none prior to the meeting. Mr. Graham, you had something to share.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As everybody doesn't know, I'm the Center Region representative of the Pennsylvania Council of Governments. And normally we would report on our meeting that we had, but we didn't have one this year. And it turns out that our executive director has retired, Linda Costas. And in the conversation today, they're really not sure where they stand. They may be realigned. We are sponsored by the Pennsylvania Borough Association and may go to BML, but we'll know later this year. So the PA Council, PA COG, I hope they're still thriving. It helps represent us in Washington, in DC, Harrisburg, not DC, Harrisburg. So stand by. We are on limbo. After the dues or requests are sent out, we see who was interested. We will probably do something beginning of next year. So that's good. Linda Costa has been with us for 20-some years. She was very good at that. So she's going to be missed, but they're good. We hope we can get another executive director soon.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Any other public comments for something not on this evening's agenda? Hearing nor seeing none, we move to introductions. Mr. May.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This evening I'd like to introduce our newest planner, Leslie Warnier. Leslie started work on October 10th, and she is working half-time on regional projects and half-time in Patton Township. We're looking for one more planner that we've interviewed, and hopefully we'll have them on board as well shortly. So I'd like Leslie to come up and just say a couple of words and have a chance to meet her. So.
Hi everyone, I'm Leslie Warner. I'm a native of Pennsylvania. I grew up on a farm about 80 miles east of here, just outside of Danville. My husband and I both went to Penn State University. I got an undergraduate degree in landscape architecture. I worked down south for quite a few years in the private sector as a consultant. And when our oldest daughter was ready to start kindergarten, we moved home to Pennsylvania about 13 years ago. So while I was pregnant with our third daughter, we bought a very old Victorian house in Millheim, and that is where we still reside. We've been fixing it ever since. So in my spare time, besides that, we do have 5 kids, and I've been very active in our community. I've volunteered, been an elected official, planning commission, and done some consulting work on the side. So anyway, I'm very happy to be back. So thank you for the introduction.
I'm going to use chair's prerogative, and we're going to bump number 4 back to a yet to be determined time. At this point, new agenda items. Does any members have any potential new agenda items for the general forum? Hearing or seeing none. Next item is COG meeting etiquette.
I'll do that while our number 4 guest arrives. Just wanted to make note of our COG meeting etiquette practices, and we normally talk about this at least once or twice a year. And it's important for us all to keep in mind that in 2018, a resolution was adopted by the General Forum adopting a code of conduct and etiquette for meetings. And that code of conduct and etiquette is found in your packet for tonight. But a couple of the key factors that I'd like to just remind everyone about is that we as an organization are committed to an environment in which all individuals are treated with respect and dignity, and that each individual has the right to participate in a professional atmosphere, because this helps promote equal opportunities to be heard and to participate. So we again want to treat everyone with respect and courtesy, and really the main reason for doing this is in honoring that respect and courtesy and respecting everyone's dignity. It helps promote civil conduct in public affairs, and that promotes equal participation in democracy. And if people feel welcome and included in our democratic process, they feel more comfortable voicing their opinions and speaking up. So we hope everyone feels welcome at any COG meeting, and we want to continue to practice that now and in the future. And we'll continue to remind all of us about that when we start the new year as well. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
With the previously postponed number 4, we will move back up. This is recognitions. Ms. Denini, you have something to share for us.
Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to thank Ms. T.R. Williams, Supervisor Williams, for her service to the township and to the center region. This will be her final COG meeting, as she has had to step down from her position, but we have really valued her time on the board, the voice that she has brought to the township and to the center region. And of course, I'm sure it's not only my wish, but all of ours when we say that best wishes, and we hope to hear from you and see you active as your life allows. And thank you very much for your service. And if you wanted to say a few words, we would welcome that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for those words, Laura, and thanks to everyone. I really appreciate everyone's help, everyone's willingness to be open, everyone who answered my phone calls or emails or text messages when I didn't know what was going on. I hope that I have made not only an impact within the COG and within Ferguson Township, but I hope that there are people who are like me, young people who are willing to get into local government and willing to open those doors and do the work that our community needs. So I'm just hoping that I was an inspiration for someone else coming up down the line. So thank you again for everyone. I appreciate the time that I've had. I don't want to get too sentimental, so I'll just stop there. So thank you.
We will miss you, Tiara. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you.
On behalf of a grateful COG, a little token for us.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, the only thing I really want to know, did you bring cupcakes?
I did. They're coming.
All right.
And posters.
All you online people.
Thank you.
All right. Now we'll go to our first action item, the consent agenda. The consent agenda for this evening consists of the minutes from our September 29th, 2022 meetings. We have the receipt of by the General Forum of the audit for the 2021 financial fiscal year. We have the referral of the 2023 COG summary budget to the General Forum, out to the municipalities to receive back comments. Does anyone wish any of those items pulled?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, please.
It's Laura Danini. Thank you. Could you, if you would, please pull item 3, the COG budget referral to the municipalities, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead, we'll adopt as a whole. After you have comments or questions on that?
Oh, I see. You mean you're placing on the agenda right this moment then? Thank you. Yes, I did just wanted to provide a few comments, but it was a large effort on this part of staff, so I wasn't sure if maybe staff wanted to provide any thoughts or comments before it's referred out to the municipalities. I know that they certainly addressed the finance committee, but if they had anything that they wanted to share with us, I wanted to provide that time for them, and then I did have just a few comments.
Sure.
So first I would ask the staff if they had anything they wanted to add.
Sure, I'll make a couple of comments. When the budget was first presented to the Finance Committee in September, the scope of the budget we knew was one that economically would be a challenge, but what had been presented to the Finance Committee were the items that had been talked about with all of the municipalities, each of your boards and councils during the scope of the summer, all of the items that have been in the program plan. We had received generally positive feedback on all of the items, either in one way or another from discussions with municipal officials during the course of the summer. But recognizing that the economy shifted during the course of the summer, inflation increased, things became more challenging. We knew it was going to be a difficult ask to consider the entire budget as originally presented. During the course of the first meeting with the Finance Committee, we were asked to go back and reduce the scope of the budget to no more than 8%, and with a lot of help and cooperation from agency directors and my colleagues in the administration office, we successfully reduced it to just under that. And so, the Finance Committee worked very hard in conjunction with staff to get to that point. So it is a very scaled back budget that does not include much of anything new for 2023. There are very few items that are listed in the agenda that were a change from 2022. Unfortunately, the many items that were new, including staff to take care of new programs and services in Parks and Recreation, and a number of other initiatives that had been discussed earlier in the year at COG committees and with municipal councils and boards, will have to be left until 2024, and we'll relook at that next year. But we did have a very participative, collaborative discussion at each of the meetings with the Finance Committee, and we think we have gotten to a place that we're ready to visit with you all about the summary budget over the next few weeks. And I have spoken with or communicated with each of the managers to get scheduled so that we can, Joe and I, or one or the other of us will be at each of your meetings over the next few weeks so that we can discuss that and review that with each council and board. So Joe and I would be happy to answer any questions, but we're at this point just referring it to the municipalities for their feedback.
Mr. Marshall, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, Jerry, what is the increase? I mean, do you know what the percentage is?
I think Joe has that handy.
Good evening. The increase is overall 6.78%.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Laura.
Thank you. If you're all set to come back to me, appreciate that comments from Executive Director Norenberg and the question and answer. I have probably maybe 3 subject area comments about this item. The first is on process. And I know this is something that the Finance Committee has been working on, and I wanted to really try to bring that to the general forum in a way that's a lived experience. So the Finance Committee has been working on, as driven by staff, really, they were, of course, prepared the document, the process of the program plan, the CIP, and the budget that we all, as individual municipalities and as a COG, shared COG, are responsible for. And part of that process is this meeting right now where the budget is referred to the municipalities. I think I have found in the past that I've been really thirsty for more dialogue with my peers prior to sending the budget out into our individual fiefdoms. I know the last thing anybody wants is more meeting time and more talking, but nonetheless, I think this is an important topic, and the Finance Committee spends a ton of time on it, and that is not to be ignored or downplayed. But there is no other opportunity than tonight, before we go again to our municipalities to have the discussion. There's no opportunity really often given here. And when I saw the budget on the consent agenda, I just wanted to bring up the thought that I've been having for years, and maybe it will spark an interest in another elected official to have a similar dialogue with each other prior to the budget going out to the individual municipalities. By the time it comes back, there really isn't any room for change. And I think it would be helpful for not only staff, but for all of us, if we maybe had an opportunity to talk prior to going into the budget. If we had that opportunity to talk, one thing that I would bring to light is, while I am extraordinarily supportive and really thankful for all of the work that's been done on the budget to really bring way back into check the large amount of growth that had been proposed originally. I think that we all know that there are some things that perhaps were cut out of that budget that may cause a real crisis of operations in the near and not too distant future. I'm going to focus on one of those things, and that is the parks governance consultant. I'm going to wrap up my comments with a few sentences here, why that is so important. So there has been sort of a mindset, I think, vocalized that we don't really need to get into the weeds with parks, that the authority can handle the weeds, and we as a general forum should either pay for it or not pay for it. That it's really not our position to make a comment on it, just either are we paying or are we not paying. The fact that we're not paying for the parks governance consultant is concerning to me because of how we conceptualize weeds in terms of the financial obligations that they bring. So we all have seen the CIP, and we know that now the budget, although trimmed, those costs are waiting in the wings to be managed through policy discussion and hopefully prioritization. But if we continue in the same structure that we're currently in, and we ignore the parks governance discussions that so sorely need to be had, I cannot in good faith continue to support that relationship. I hope that others feel the same way, because this is really a last-ditch effort, really a begging and a pleading to please help prioritize fixing the structure of parks governance, whereby in our minds we have defined 80% of a capital improvement program to be the weeds. So please let's prioritize that as we take this budget out to our own municipalities. Let's think about that parks governance consultant and if that money is well spent. And I would appreciate very much hearing comments come back from all the municipalities unanimously that that's something that they all would like to prioritize. Thank you for your time. And that was all I had to say about the budget. And I appreciate any feedback that anyone would care to give now or in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. I definitely anticipate and hope to see that comment in coming back for at least Ferguson Township, and I'm sure more in the summary budget comments. Anything else on that? If not, I would accept the motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved, Peter Marshall.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries. Commitment for planned engine replacement. Eric?
Thank you. Fire Director Bear is unavailable tonight with other obligations, so this very simple request is one that I get to present. This has been reviewed by the Public Safety Committee and the Executive Committee, but earlier this season, staff has reported to the General Forum that apparatus ordering is taking longer and longer, and so we are faced with needing to place an order for a new engine approximately 30 months in the future. So we are planning to place the order for delivery in 2025, and we're looking for authorization to do that for a replacement fire engine. We will not have to place any money as a deposit. No funds will need to be expended at this point, but we are looking for authorization to go ahead and make that commitment before November 1st, when there will be a 13.5% price increase. So if we can get approval tonight, we will save that cost and we will get that engine hopefully delivered in 2025. Again, this has gone through several committees and we look forward to approval by the General Forum.
Questions for staff? Yes, Mr. Avery.
Is it appropriate to move approval of that?
I have no problem with that. As written in the agenda?
Yes.
Very good.
Second.
Mr. Marshall, second. Any further discussion? Reminder that Half Moon and Harris will abstain. Not hearing or seeing any further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Again, Half Moon and Harris abstain. Motion carries. Continuing on, Juneteenth holiday. Eric again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In 2021, the federal government established legislation for a Juneteenth federal holiday. Juneteenth is now the national holiday commemorating the end of slavery. And in 2021, when this was first discussed and approved by the federal government, the HR committee discussed and considered whether or not to move ahead at that point with having a holiday for COG staff, and felt it was best to wait and watch and see what happened with the area municipalities. Now in 2022, I presented it as part of the program plan and detailed budget to add that holiday to our slate of holidays for COG staff. Majority of the municipal comments during the review of the program plan this summer were supportive. In fact, as of now, Ferguson Township and the borough have both added Juneteenth as a holiday for their employees, and Patton Township plans to add the holiday for 2023. While at the time it was not planned, College Township was also supportive for COG staff, and that may be discussed in the future for College Township employees. One of the things that's important to remember when we adopt our holiday schedule for COG staff, that SLO Library does have a slightly different holiday schedule and sometimes is open on days that are holidays for other staff as part of their service to the public and engagement in celebrating the holidays with their patrons and in the community. So that COG General Forum is supported tonight for adopting a Juneteenth holiday for the COG. This will be referred then up to the library board for ratification, as well as a decision on implementing a schedule for SCLO employees. I should note there was a incorrect statement in your packet. This was discussed by the HR committee recently, but the HR committee did not make a recommendation. Instead referred this and asked the executive committee to place this on the general forum agenda for discussion and potential action. The executive committee did make a recommendation, and that recommendation is in the packet tonight. I think it would be important to note that Becca is with us attending remotely, our HR administrator, HR officer, and so either of us will be able to answer any questions about holidays and plans for the Juneteenth holiday. So with that introduction, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Questions for staff? Mr. Lord.
I want to comment on behalf of Harris Township. We discussed this when it came before us when we reviewed the program. And as a group, we recognize the importance of recognizing Juneteenth as a holiday. Not as a holiday, but as an event that needs to be celebrated. We weren't sure that we wanted to support giving people a day off work, but felt rather that the emphasis should be on commemorating that event. And that we as a group should support that commemoration and even sponsor it ourselves, perhaps. And I'll add on my own, this is beyond what we had talked about, but I'd be happy to support having our employees have paid time off during the day to attend celebratory events. So, as I said, we're opposed to the day off, but very much supportive of recognizing that important event and important celebration.
Thank you. Other comments? Mr. Hart?
Yeah, I'm good. I agree with everything Bryce just said, obviously. We kind of agreed as a board, but I'm looking at it from another standpoint. One of the things I looked at when I looked at the somber budget that we were given in our packet, admin's already up over $100,000 increase this year, and a paid holiday costs us about $25,000. So we're gonna add another $25,000 to the budget, which is already being stretched thin with everything we got. I want to come to the point that if you remember when I was my age, some of you might not be this old, but we used to celebrate Lincoln's birthday, Washington's birthday. And after several times, the federal government finally said, let's have President's Day. So now we have President's Day. My concern is that we've got a lot of holidays and we've got a lot of groups out there. There's more coming into the country every year because we are inclusive. And, you got Cinco de Mayo out there, Pulaski Day for the Polish people, St. Patrick's Day. There's a ton of them. So every time that somebody wants to do one of them, I would like to propose that this go back to the HR department. And let's pick 5 or 6 holidays that are always going to be there, the standard holiday. And then let's look at maybe having 2 floating holidays, or 1. That any group, you can take it as you want it throughout the year, make it like a, if you want to, if you like St. Patrick's Day, that can be your paid holiday or your floating holiday. If it's Cinco de Mayo, you can be Cinco de Mayo. So I would like to see us have, and just get this going forward, to have a standard group of holidays, which we pretty much know what the standards are, and then have perhaps 1 or 2 floating holidays that people can take at their wish, just pretty much what Bruce said, that they can take the day off and celebrate an event for their group or their whoever they are. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. It's not more or less whether I agree with this holiday or disagree. It's more that we've got to look financially at what we're doing with our finances, and that's kind of what my point is.
Okay, Mr. Barlow. Laura, I have you next.
Okay, I just want to say that I'm entirely for giving our employees a paid holiday for that. This is a holiday that has been greatly under-recognized. I think until a few years ago, most people probably didn't. Most people most white people probably didn't know this holiday existed. It's now been recognized by our federal government, and I think, you know, this amount of money is a drop in the bucket. I wouldn't support, you know, every possible holiday on the calendar. No, that would be infeasible. But this is a very important holiday in American history. It's every bit as important as President's Day, and I think it should be recognized.
Thank you, sir. Laura, I had Laura, then I'll go to Mr. Marshall.
Thank you. I move the general forum amend section 4.15 holidays, personnel days of the COG personnel policy handbook to designate Juneteenth as an additional paid holiday for eligible non-library COG employees effective January 1, 2023. And further, that the SCLO Center Region Library Board be asked to consider similar action for eligible library employees.
Very good. We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Marshall.
Just a couple of comments. How many holidays COG employees get right now?
Becca, could you assist, please?
How many holidays?
I'm not positive off the top of my head, but if you want to continue the conversation, I'll have that number for you in just a minute.
Okay, the other comment I want to make, slavery in this country is a pretty important point. And if we stopped slavery, and that's what this holiday acknowledges, I can't think of anything more important to acknowledge in this country. That was my only comment, but I'm still interested in how many holidays.
Laura, did you have a follow-up comment? Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I very much support this, and as a non-Christian person, it's really difficult just sitting here and not speaking up about how assumptive it is that Christmas and Easter and all of the Christian holidays are going to be taken off. And I'm just wondering what our criteria or our rationale are going to be other than people's opinions about how we're selecting holidays if it's not based on something. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Williams.
Yes, so I was one of the people that was on the HR committee that we couldn't really come to a consensus, so that's why we wanted to send it to the general forum. And anybody who's obviously on HR can obviously speak up. After the meeting and listening to certain people's comments here, you know, I appreciate some of the statements were made. Yes, the enslavement of Black and Indigenous people is a very serious thing to acknowledge. I guess my question or concern is sometimes Juneteenth has been celebrated for years. I've celebrated it for over 10 years. Now, true enough, just like Mr. Barlow said, white people might have just now recognized the holiday, but Black people and people of color and people who know about the holiday, we've always celebrated this holiday without it being nationally recognized by anyone. After the national recognition, what you get is a lot of cultural appropriation. What you get is a lot of people putting things in stores and things on TV and things to just kind of capitalize off the holiday without knowing or learning anything about the holiday or it even being a real concern to them. So my issue personally is, quite frankly, aside from the people who've been elected this year, the COG is not full of a bunch of African-American people. It's not full of a bunch of African-American employees. And my ancestors worked on Juneteenth. I don't understand the need for you all to have a day off personally. What I do agree with is education. What I do agree with is acknowledgement. What I do agree with is understanding. Now, I don't agree with some of the terms that were used over here with the certain groups. When we talk about African Americans, indigenous people, it's a different type of thing. We weren't immigrants. We built this country. So when we talk about this history, Juneteenth, that history is your history as well. It's not just my history. That is your history. It's just how it's been set up. But nevertheless, I don't understand paying people who are not Black, who are only just benefiting from it because we now made it a national holiday and don't care about it. And then, to be honest, I do agree, maybe with time off, people want to attend some Juneteenth celebrations. But to be honest, there were celebrations on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays where people were not at work. And a lot of people that are sitting here in this room did not attend some of those Juneteenth events. Now, some of you all did. But even when you had the chance to attend these events, when you weren't at work, people didn't do that. So I don't understand why I should pay you to attend events that are supposed to be educational. It really just doesn't make sense. I understand the inclusionary part, but I think sometimes with that, we miss the mark of what we're really trying to do. And the point should be to educate those who don't understand why Juneteenth is important, who don't understand why it had to be made a holiday, who don't understand that after the Declaration of Independence, most of us weren't free. That's the point of that. And the point is not to pay people now because Biden finally signed it away. Like we've always celebrated. So that's why I personally I disagreed with it. Some of my colleagues disagreed or agreed and whatnot, and that's why we brought it forth. But I just wanted to just kind of put that out there. I understand the inclusion, and I think sometimes allies miss the mark when it comes to inclusion and don't realize that what you're actually doing is giving people some kind of reward for something that my ancestors worked for. I don't see the purpose, and I just.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Becca, let's answer the question asked, and then we'll go to Mr. Abrams and then Ms. Marshall.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, it took me a minute to pull up the policy handbook. I should know that. But it is different for COG and for SCLO, so I wanted to be sure I was quoting correctly. It's 13 holidays. It's actually 10 holidays at SCLO, 10 holidays at COG with 3 personal days. That totals the 13, and 8 at the library with 5 personal holidays. That totals their 13 days. So we have the same amount of days. And also, I would just like to add that our DE&I initiatives and trainings that we have been involved in have told us to take these types of steps to make sure that we're showing our support and helping in recruitment of diverse individuals so that we're showing that we are a welcoming and inclusive organization. So I think that implementation of this kind of holiday coupled with raising awareness about why it is being implemented as a holiday is definitely a step in the right direction. And it's helping us keep pace with the benefits of our municipal partners who are implementing it already and speaking about implementing it, as well as other employers in the community like Penn State University and others who have adopted the holiday.
Thanks, Becca. Also, before we get to you, Elliot, Eric has been given some thought on ways that we could potentially touch on what Ms. Williams is.
Sure. like Supervisor Williams, I've been observing and celebrating Juneteenth since 2008 when I became city manager of a community in Ohio. I had maybe heard about it before, but it became part of my observance and celebration then, and it's something that's continued, even though I no longer live in that community. But Oberlin was a community that observed and celebrated Juneteenth as a cultural event for the community because of its role during the Civil War as one of the last stops on the Underground Railroad. So I understand it's a unique. There are a lot of unique ways to celebrate the culture and the history of Juneteenth and make it really part of the community and understanding for everyone. So part of what I would like to do, if we implement the holiday next year is be sure that we create some awareness and create the opportunities to participate in the events that happen in the community. My first year here was in Happy Valley was the year of the pandemic, but there was still an event that occurred with all of us wearing masks at the MLK Plaza. And so I know that since then there have been more extensive events on more days and more evenings, and not only that on the weekend of Juneteenth. So as we find out the schedule of events for 2023, I think Becca and I plan to encourage and educate our staff about the events that are available, as well as the history and background of the holiday. And certainly we don't want to miss this opportunity. We don't want people just to think it's a paid day off without any meaning behind it. So that is our plan if we go forward in 2023.
Thank you, Eric. Mr. Abrams.
I've been listening to all this and agree with most of what everyone's saying, even if they haven't agreed with each other. But I think that, to me, the most important part about any national holidays is with education. When children learn about why we have a vacation when they're in elementary school, and what the importance of it is, they hold that for the rest of their lives. And when you learn the Pledge of Allegiance, and you learn that there was horror of slavery. George Washington, it's amazing. None of us were here to see George Washington. And in fact, the paintings they have of the crossing of Delaware are all fake because it was at night and nobody could have made a painting of it. But I think it's important in the educational system that kids learn about this, and somehow saying that it shouldn't be that important, I think it's just the opposite. It's a very important thing that the country had slavery, decided that it was not going to have it anymore. On a lighter note, it's true that various things like cards and candy can prop up with every holiday. And we have it right now with Halloween. Everybody knows that the only candy that you're allowed to give to elementary school students is recess pieces.
I don't think that was one of your better ones, Elliot. Mr. Marshall.
Two things. First of all, 13 holidays is pretty standard from what I've seen. But the other thing I want to comment on, and it has something to do with Ms. Williams, the fact that this is a national holiday has generated a lot of education. For me, I've learned more about this than I ever knew before. And I think that's going to continue. And this is a national holiday. Don't we follow national holidays pretty much? I mean, just for no other reason, it's a national holiday. And so it's pretty typical that local governments and state governments follow national holidays. But besides that, because it's a national holiday, the education is on an upward. I mean, I've learned more in the last 2 years about this than I ever knew before, and I'm sure I'll know more before we're done.
Okay, Mr. Takap.
Just as a point of reference, I spent many years in Texas, and Juneteenth became a paid state holiday in 1980. So I was actually expecting it when we came back. But I think the fact that it is now a national holiday has raised its stature, has raised the awareness, and perhaps in that is an opportunity to further educate people. I know it was certainly a point of emphasis in Texas because it was in Galveston where it originated. So, and there are other states that had a paid state holiday prior to the federal holiday as well. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Laura, please.
Thanks so much. So I've heard the question a couple times. I haven't heard it answered though. So I feel a little frustrated by the conversation because I feel like someone knows somewhere in this organization if there are criteria by which we use to decide when employees have time off, or do do we really, honest to God, like take this shotgun approach with every single holiday? So for me, yeah, I saw a national holiday and I was like, why would this be is this the only national holiday that we're not celebrating at COG? So like, I have all these questions about a rubric in which one makes decisions. And as an elected official, sometimes that's all you have. Like, yeah, it's a national holiday. Therefore, our criteria at COG is if it's a national holiday, employees get the day off. I don't know that it's really a best employment practice to kind of have a randomized version of what holidays we think are important and what one we think are not important. So I don't know a lot about HR, but it kind of seems like a landmine field to me to do that. So do we or do we not have a policy by which we have any kind of guidance for us to use criteria to decide what holidays we should have off?
Okay.
Are there criteria?
We'll start with
Thanks,
the
Becca.
Director.
So before I arrived, the policy manual for human resources for the COG was updated through a very extensive process. And the holidays were listed there, and that's the document that Becca looked up to answer the question earlier. One of the things that is somewhat consistent amongst a number of organizations is some of the selected holidays. I can imagine just even within this center region that there are some communities that do not observe MLK holiday, for example. One of the floating holidays for the COG is one that we can, as staff, vote on every year. Pretty much every list of national holidays you can find will identify the day after Thanksgiving. That is one that employees here at the COG vote on every year. Do they want that day as a holiday, or do they want another choice? And so at one point it was decided that COG employees would have a choice of that floating holiday. And so Becca gave them a list of choices, I think 5 different ones a few weeks ago, and they consistently have chosen, and again this year chose the day after Thanksgiving instead of a couple of other choices. But one of the national holidays that is not observed by the COG is Columbus Day. I worked for another organization previous to coming here that observed Columbus Day but not Veterans Day. So I think there is a little bit of inconsistency, but there is a core list of holidays that I think you can find observed in many governmental organizations and business organizations. One of the things that has come up in this conversation this evening and at the staff level and previously in conversations are the list of other religious and holidays that just aren't normally observed as paid holidays on the list that you would normally find. And I think it's important for COG to be cognizant of those holidays for a variety of religious groups, and so that we can do our best, if not to observe it as a paid holiday for staff, use it to make sure that we try to avoid scheduling meetings. We already moved some of our meetings around holidays such as Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, and I think it's important for us to be aware of as many of those holidays as possible so that we can maybe avoid scheduling general forum meetings or other key meetings on those days. So I provided Scott a list of those meetings, and we will be looking at that when we set the meeting calendar for 2023 and make sure that the committees, in particular the executive committee, as they look at the schedule for the year, are aware of as many of those holidays that we should be alert to. And again, if we're not having a paid holiday with the day off, we should be looking at, should we avoid scheduling meetings? Because as I said at the outset when we talked about our meeting etiquette, we want people to feel comfortable and welcome participating in our meetings of the general forum and all of our committees. So if we hold meetings on days where people are celebrating a religious holiday and they don't feel comfortable attending that meeting that day, we miss out on their input and their participation. So I think we need to be more and more alert to that over the next few years. Becca, did I miss anything?
No, I think I would just add, Laura, to your point or your question. This is the first time that we've attempted to make a holiday change since I believe it was 1982 when the MLK Day holiday was adopted. And because our holiday schedule is a part of our COG handbook, that has to always come before the general forum for majority adoption of any changes to our holiday schedule.
Gotcha. I guess thank you for that. Really, thank you so much for the education to staff. To me, this is screaming, we need a policy. I don't know if that's to others, but like I have questions because I just keep having more questions. And that's why I think that even though I'm ready to pass this motion, as I've stated it, I also think that from what I've heard from staff, it sounds like, I don't know, to me, it sounds like there's a guarantee of Christmas, like certain holidays, there's some that maybe are chosen or not chosen. I mean, is any of that written down, or is that maybe it already is in a policy? Maybe I'm wrong. But you know, I'm ready to pass this. We passed this in Ferguson Township, and I support it. But I also would say, with the caveat that it does sound like there is some work to be done, because we do want to make sure that we're being fair and equal, right? And how we're approaching this, I think it sounds like it needs some updating from 1982 to now. So
sounds like a great agenda item for an HR committee. I'm a firm believer journeys start with the first step. Let's make that first step. I'm going to call the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
No.
Did you see that's kind of, not. Once again, all those no, please. All four of Harris. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Center Region Council of Governments annually sponsor an event to celebrate and commemorate Juneteenth.
Okay, that was not offered as a
I think it's
potential new agenda item.
on this topic.
I believe it is, and I think we set up a good path that it hit our HR committee first. We've gotten ourselves offline, not following our committee structure before, and I think it's good that we go with our HR committee.
I'm sure that's an HR issue.
Very good. University report. Ms. Young.
I apologize, took me a minute to get off mute. Good evening, everyone. I think you probably know the event that was due to take place tonight during our meeting. It was recently announced that the events were canceled due to the threat of violence. So I hope that everything has resolved peacefully, but protesters have been asked to disperse now that the event is canceled. So wanted to let you know that that was breaking news. The other thing is just a COVID update. I think we have been alerted that our numbers are on an uptick, and we've been continuing to look at wastewater. And so we're just proactively giving out rapid tests at this time, making sure that students are aware that COVID is still here and that fall and winter is going to be a peak probably for that. Also, continuing to offer booster vaccines and making people aware that the flu is on the rise as well. So we're dealing with two nasty viruses that we still need to be alert about. But right now, that is all that I have for this evening. So any questions?
Questions for Ms. Young? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
State College Area School District report. I'm not seeing any members of the school board with us. Very good. Agency directors reports.
Yeah, from the agency directors and COG agencies, we have the October activity report, and that was previously distributed. if there are any questions or comments, I'd be happy to respond, or agency directors can help me out with that. And I would like to draw your attention to one of the very last items in your agenda, which is, excuse me, I'm having trouble flipping through there. In item 17 in this agenda, we always have helpful reference links, and the first bullet there is a section called Governance, Policies, Procedures, and Other Related Documents. And there's a link there in your agenda. It's there for every meeting, and you're always able to click on that. And if you scroll through the governance documents link, you can find the COG Human Resources Policy Manual that is, Personnel Policy Manual adopted by the COG in April 2019. And so for the question of the policy regarding holidays and any of our other HR policies, any of you can read that. It's online and available at any time. And so everything is out there and available, not only for you guys, but for our employees, there for helpful reference. So that whole section was created as I think an initiative of the executive committee last year to try and have as many of our policies and procedures available with easy access for general forum members and the public and our employees. So just wanted to make sure you could find that easily.
That's a combined executive director, agency directors report. Thank you, Eric. I apologize. Any questions for the executive director? Seeing or hearing none, we'll go to our authority board and committee reports. Executive committee, Mr. Barlow.
Well, the summary there is pretty thorough, except it doesn't seem to have reflected the discussion we had of the budget. I'm not sure, some of which we had this evening, and also the discussion of the process for hiring a solicitor in the future.
Maybe you could share the results of that discussion.
The results of that discussion were that I think we were going to.
Could you remove your mask? It's hard to, me at least, understand.
All right. I've recovered from COVID like a week and a half ago, so my habit is a little bit. Okay, what I can remember is that we brought up the idea that we should have a procedure for hiring a solicitor. There was some discussion as to whether we should ask a solicitor to apply for this job, and decided that was a good idea. However, we were looking for kind of I think we all agree that there should be a structure for doing so, having people submit proposals, proper process for doing it. Because the previous time that we transitioned, Terry was simply somebody in the same firm as the person that was to. And we didn't think that was a good way to.
Right, and we took official action towards that. The intent was that the executive, or that the current solicitor would continue on until the COG or Mr. Williams, Attorney Williams decides not to go forward, and that we asked the executive director to work on an agreement that covers more formalizes the relationship. Questions on executive? Yes, Laura, please.
Thanks so much. I apologize. I was unable to attend that meeting. So, and then there was just a little garbling. So did you say that there's sort of do I understand correctly that we have not yet established a time frame in which we are going to open an RFP for candidates, that we are going to allow our current solicitor to set that time frame by his interest in retirement or not? If that's the correct understanding, I think that conversation needs to continue, because I believe that would be a policy issue, that maybe we would want to set that time frame on a regular schedule to evaluate that. So for example, every 2 years beginning now, every 2 years beginning a year ago, every 2 years beginning in 1 year. You know, I just wonder if maybe it's a better idea to not let the contractual right, the individual that maybe we might drive that engine. So am I correct in understanding that our current solicitor will be driving that bus, or are we, the executive committee and general forum, driving it, timeline-wise?
By unanimous vote, it was continued, the executive committee directed that it would be a mutual between the COG solicitor and or the COG. So therefore, you know, that will continue on until the time at which either the COG officially directs or the solicitor no longer wishes to proceed. And at that point,
Okay,
there's an RFQ process to come forward.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just then note my concern over that, and it has nothing to do with thinking this or any other solicitor isn't a meritorious individual. My concern involves the idea that the individual that's being paid for those services is the one that's driving that renewal annually. That's not how it's done in the municipalities. And I just have some concern about that. So I'll just note that here publicly, and if we can maybe consider that as a revised discussion at executive session. And then I will also note some serious concerns that I heard at one point another elected official mention that one reason why we don't want to have this solicitor leave is because he's done all our papers and he understands all of the quirky things about it that maybe a new solicitor might not understand. And then that also transfers to the park authority, who is a completely different entity that same solicitor works for. And that right there sets up a conflict of interest. Again, not a character flaw, just a dynamic. So I'll just note my concern there. A lot of it.
I just want to say that argument was not made in our committee discussions.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Marshall.
How long is it Mr. Williams? How long has he been the solicitor?
You have to go back to the...
For a long time?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I would have faith in the executive committee that if you started getting the wrong answers or poor workmanship or something else, you would have enough strength to decide that you needed to make a change. And yes, there could be an agreement, and if you work on an agreement, some new agreement, fine. But I don't think that you need to change solicitors or even having a 2-year agreement where you have to go over it again. I think you can judge the work quality of the solicitor and make a decision based on that work quality.
And one of the things that was discussed was annual discussion of how the relationship's going. So that was an important element of the executive committee. Okay, Finance Committee, Mr. Trevino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Certainly the agenda includes a summary of the items that the Finance Committee discussed. In the summary, there's really no details about the budget hearings that were held. I'll just mention briefly, we had 4 budget hearings. And the final one, the 4th one, was the wrap-up session where we ended up with the revised budget proposal that will be forwarded to the municipalities. I do also want to acknowledge the very hard work that was undertaken by the COG Executive Director, the COG Finance Director, and the COG Agency Directors in revising their budget proposals, because at the very first budget hearing, the Finance Committee because of the, what we considered the excessive request for an increase in financial contributions over the 2022 budget, we sent the proposed budgets back to the agency directors to revise. They all worked hard on accommodating the Finance Committee's directive. We had very productive detailed budget hearings as a result. And I also want to acknowledge the exceptional leadership shown by the chair, Rich Frank, of the Finance Committee, who really helped guide these budget hearing sessions in a very productive and a rational and straightforward way so that we could accomplish our goal. So I think our chair needs to be acknowledged with his leadership role in that regard. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Dan.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
The money account First National, was there comparative data from other banks with respect to the selection of First National?
I got a finance director who can speak to that. While he's making his way, one other thing that for the Finance Committee that I want to make sure that General Forum is aware is the input of the managers and finance directors throughout the budget review process. And one thing that's going to come out of that, either at our December meeting or a special meeting, would be a discussion of going forward. How can we do it better? We do have these we ask every year, how could we do better? And in my time, I think I've seen us do a little bit better every year. But there was some fundamental change of lanes this year, and we all got to get together and talk about that, get that in place before we move forward next year. Joe, go ahead. On the bank account.
Yes. On the bank account, we elected to keep it with our local depository rather than check into a full RFP for various banks. We've checked 2 different places, which is FMB and then also Pliget, which we have investments in. And at this point in time, the FMB, with the ability to have it in a money market account and transfer funds as they are used for the project, made more sense in that to go that route rather than the Pliget route.
It was very too late now, but no.
Okay. Any other questions on finance? Human resources. Mr. Wilson's not with us. Mr. Best, do you have anything to add to what's shown in the agenda?
Sorry, nothing to add.
Okay, very good. Parks Capital did not meet. Public safety, Mr. Takak.
I'm sorry, Chair, I have a brief comment I wanted to bring up about Parks Capital.
Okay, hold on. Time out, Mr. Takak.
I'm standing by.
You're safe. Go ahead, please.
Thank you so much. I wanted to just first apologize to the committee for the cancellation of the September meeting. It was my full intention to hold that meeting, but in email communications with the agency director and then with the recording secretary, that they had let me know that they weren't going to be present for that meeting, so it would need to be canceled. So I just wanted to note then that it's my intention, as here you see as a matter of record, it is my current intention that November meeting would be held. So if there is going to be a problem with that, if staff could identify that problem immediately and let me know so we can reschedule that with the committee. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Takak.
Nothing to add to the summary provided, except I would like to make the correction that our next meeting is actually a joint meeting with the land use and community infrastructure on November 3rd. You're not meeting.
Okay.
To my knowledge.
Does that sound correct?
I believe it's the 15th.
Check on that. On the calendar, it says Thursday.
Following up. we will follow up. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Very good.
Thank you.
Facilities Committee, Ms. Hartle.
Yes, good evening. I have nothing to add to the write-up in the agenda.
Okay.
If there are any questions.
Not seeing any. Yeah.
Ernest,
On which?
the joint meeting that Paul mentioned, we had that meeting. We had that meeting, that was a joint
November 3rd.
okay, that's another joint meeting, okay, sorry.
No problem. Those Lucy guys like to join.
We love Lucy.
On to the Land Use and Community Infrastructure Committee. Anything to add to what's shown in the agenda? Good, very good. Okay, Climate Action and Sustainability Committee, Ms. Whitman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. The write-up certainly captured the content of the meeting, but I'd like to elaborate a little bit on the spirit of the discussion, which was quite lively. In discussing the survey that Ms. Shelley Mado is going to be sending out to community members, we asked what exactly her purpose, intent in getting feedback on that survey was. So it is at once getting feedback on the price and the services that people are willing to live with or change to. But from our perspective, it's also about the potential, the opportunity to change behavior. So if we're talking about going from trash pickup every week to every other week, that's huge change. We have to do it in the right way, but ultimately the goal is to make things a little better for everyone, especially greenhouse gas emissions, other aspects of it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, our Parks, Recreation, Governance, I don't know if we reported the last time, but the committee voted to seek a facilitator, and that money was in the budget. It came out as part of the budget reviews, as Ms. Donini referenced. So, committee representatives argue in your individual boards for that, and we're not going to have meet again until we get clear guidance on that. SLO Center Region Library Board. Ms. Collins, do you have anything for us in addition to the agenda?
Nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Center Region Parks and Recreation Authority, Mr. Ward, you got it. I think you're in the room.
Yes, we did meet. We've had extensive discussions about the need for the release of some of the funds that were held back after the refinancing in order to handle some cost overruns. There's been cost overruns, some of them just unanticipated expenses, some of them problems with our contractors, some of them frankly internal problems. We're working through that. I'll note that at our last meeting, we had a request to pay an overage, and we declined to do so and tabled it to get this issue straightened out.
That's definitely a stay tuned item.
Yes.
More details coming very quickly. Other business, matters of record, anything that staff wishes to draw to our attention?
Just a reminder regarding matter of record D about the survey for those of you participating remotely. If you haven't completed the survey regarding the acoustic improvements, please click that link and let us know what you think. We have 24 responses in already, but if there's anybody participating remotely tonight or in the committee meeting coming up that is and you're normally in the room and you're participating remotely in the future, this gives you a chance to respond. Thank you.
Thank you. As indicated previously, you helped reference Link's calendar, and at this point I'm going to turn it back to Ms. Williams to close out the meeting.
Wait. Wait, just to adjourn?
That's totally up to you. You got the floor.
You guys are going to make me cry. I just want to say thank you again to everyone. I'm just really, really, really happy that a lot of you all welcomed me in. Thank you to those who listened to my opinions, even if they didn't agree with them. Thank you to those who are willing to have those tough conversations. And hopefully, again, people are willing to, you guys make space for younger elected officials, okay? Make space for younger people to come in and do the work of the community. So I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you all so much.